What's happening, my fellow geeks and geekheads? Welcome to a brand new episode of Cosplay Chris, and today, in honor of the amazing announcement of E3 of remastering the first 3 Crash Bandicoot games and the 20th anniversary of Crash Bandicoot later this year, I'm going to show you guys how to make a 1-to-1 scale replica of the infamous Aku Aku mask. That's right, it's nearly been 20 years since the first release of Crash Bandicoot 1, and Crash Bandicoot was the first game I ever played on the PS1 when mum and dad bought it for me. I just remember playing and thinking this is the most amazing game ever. When I saw Aku Aku, I fell in love. I'm like, this is a great little character. So yes, today I'm going to be demonstrating how to make a 1-to-1 scale replica of Aku Aku. Well, in my opinion, 1-to-1 scale replica, everything's pretty much going to be a guesstimate in terms of scale next to Crash and Coco. Now this is a relatively simple build. The main components are going to be pine, MDF, and balsa wood. I've actually got all samples here to show you guys the measurements. I've kept the labels on each piece of wood so you guys know what exactly is required if you are going to be following this method. So first off, I've got the balsa wood components. This piece here is one solid block. This is for the nose. Now this is 40 by 75 by 915. So I'll be showing close-ups of the labels so you guys get a pretty good idea of what to get. So the nose has been traced on here, and I'd pretty much just be cutting away this part here and then grinding away on the bench grinder until eventually I get a nose. Next up, we got the mouthpiece. Now this is the upper and lower lip. Now this is 19 millimeters in thickness, and this is 100 by 915. This is from the hobby headquarters, which was literally like a block away from Bunnings Warehouse. Bunnings Warehouse just didn't have this thickness in stock at the time. Now we're moving on to the MDF board. Now first off, we have a very thinner piece of MDF. Now this is for the feathers on the top of the head, the eyeballs themselves, and the green bags under the eyes. And there you go, there's that one. Now this is a slightly thicker piece of MDF. This is for the eyebrows and the goatee at the bottom of the mask. And there you go. Now finally, the actual base face itself is going to be made from premium pine. And I think this was like 10 bucks from Bunnings Warehouse for like a long sheet, so if you stuff it up, don't worry, you've got a lot left to play with. Now this is the reference photo I'm going to be going off. There's something about the color scheme with this whole piece that I love, especially the feathers. I just love all the different colors and textures that have been placed on each and every feather. Now as well as the mask, we're also going to be constructing a base for it to slot onto for display. Now I will be getting to that later in the video, so with that being said, let's get to it. Alright geeks, it has been a few days and I've been pulling my hair out now. Usually I'd have a montage of me cutting out all the pieces, but it gets a bit mundane and boring after a while. It's the same thing, you know. So here are the templates. These are all guesstimates in terms of scale. So, you know, you look at the photo, you look at a photo of Aku Aku next to Crash or Coco, and you try and scale it out just to make it 1-to-1. Now you notice I don't have the nose, I don't have a template for the nose. That was just a guesstimate when I drew it out on the balsa wood and then carved it out. These are the main ones that I needed templates for, of course. You know, you got the eyes, the bags under the eyes, the eyebrows. There are 7 feathers, as you can see there, on the head. But I've only got 5, and that's because 2 are doubled up. 2 are the exact same feathers, so there was no need for 7 templates. And then we've got the mouth. Now, moving right along, oh, we've also got the goatee, and I'll explain how I did the goatee in a minute. Now, we've got the mouth. As we move along here, you will see different incarnations of the mouth in terms of material. The top 2 pieces are pine. And as you can see, I got the bottom lip down pat. That was easy because it's a very simple shape. You can get that to focus. And then we've got the upper lip. And as you can see, that is a very much more complicated shape. Grinding this thing out on a bench grinder was an absolute punish. And as you can see, that's why I gave up. The result here is an angle grinder. I attacked it with an angle grinder. It started to burn the wood, and it was going to take way too long. And then I tried my hand at MDF, which is what the feathers, you know, the eyebrows, the eyes, the bags under the eyes, and the goatee are made from. And that proved even harder to grind out. For some reason, the feathers and everything else cooperated when it was grinding because it was a thinner MDF, whilst this is a thicker sheet of MDF, so I gave up on that. Finally, I settled on balsa wood. So this is a test here. This is a test mouth. Everything seemed to work out well. The upper lip was a lot more easier to shape and grind out, whereas the upper lip, you really had to take your time. I did end up stuffing that upper lip up, but still, you know, it adds to the process. So finally, after all the pieces have been cut out, sanded, smoothed, all that, we've got this so far. And I'm very, very happy with the result so far. So it seems to be matching up very well to the photo here, which is what I'm trying to emulate. And most incarnations of Aku Aku, the eyes are round, but in this case they're octagons, and I want to replicate that kind of pixelated kind of look. 'Cause, you know, it's a PlayStation 1 game. It's got a lot of pixels going on there. Now, as you see here, the goatee has a bevel, and that was just using the cutoff tool on the Ryobi multi-purpose tool and going in on an angle and just carving it away and then sanding it smooth. Obviously it does look a little bit uneven, but I kind of dig that. It looks like it's been carved wood. And now we've got all the different feathers here with little notches that have been dremeled in with the cutoff tool. And everything's pretty much been sanded, smoothed down. I've just, you know, noted which is the left, which is the right. And obviously we've got the nose here, which was pretty easy to carve out of that balsa wood. It is balsa wood, so the angle grinder just eats away at it. You'll notice here that this nose does have a lot more of a flare where the nostrils are, whereas mine doesn't. That's because the balsa wood I had wasn't wide enough, but it doesn't bother me. I'm fully aware that there is a much more pronounced flare there as opposed to this nose, but it does the job. I'm happy with it. It still looks like Aku Aku. Now as for the teeth are going to be part of the board, the baseboard. So we'll be engraving along the lines of where the gaps of the teeth are, and then I'll be filing it so it looks a bit more smooth. As you can see here, the teeth are quite flat and very pixelated. So it'll be a pronounced black line going through and then a lighter bunch of lines going through and some shading just up the top here for the gums and all that jazz. I'm not gonna lie, I'm glad this part's over because I've been pulling my hair out, especially when it came to the mouth. I've already glued the 2 pieces of the mouth together just for reference sake. I know the mouth is not perfect, fully aware of that, but you know, it gets to a point where you've just gotta be happy with it and move on. And I really am. You know, it's not going to be absolutely 100% perfect, but for what it is, considering I started this from scratch and guessing all the scales and angles and the shapes, you know, it looks like Aku Aku. So now that this step is done, we can finally get on to my most favorite part, painting. And I'm really looking forward to this because look at all those beautiful shades on the feathers. I want to try and recreate that as best as possible, and for that we're just going to be using basic student acrylic paints. It is commentary time. Now, as you see here, I've got all the student acrylics lined up, and it's common sense, guys. You know, you have a look and break down all the colors that are needed. And as you can see here, I've still got the teeth that still need painting. I'm going to be leaving that till last. So that was done with the cut-off tool on the Dremel and that little carving tool right there, just to give a bit of a bevel, I guess you could say, on the teeth, so they're not just flat and two-dimensional. Now this is just a basic brown that I'm going over for the base of the actual mask, and the great thing about this paint is it soaks in that much into the pine that it does pick up the wood texture, and that made the detailing and the dry brushing a lot easier, so I could follow an actual grain. Now I'm just putting push pins into the nose here, and this makes it a lot easier to paint instead of just having it on a flat surface, and that's when it gets really messy and you get a lot of paint on your hands. So that's just a burnt sienna color, and that's the same for the eyebrows. There we go, there are the eyebrows, nice and easy. And this took about 2 coats just to get a nice even finish, but I did want a bit of texture, and as well as the bags under the eyes, that's just a nice light green with a dark green on the outside just to give it a bit more depth and texture. Now this is just the base color for the feathers, and I will be getting to how I did the detail part on the purple feather in particular and the orange feather. Now here I am, I just mixed up some white with this brown to make it a lot more lighter and giving it the wood grain finish just with the sponge brush there, very lightly, just trying to make that wood grain effect. And it turned out a lot better than I had anticipated. And there we go. Now here are the eyes. Now this is something that I had a bit of trouble with. I'm just mixing some fabric paint and white paint. Now the reason why I've got fabric paint for this is because it's a lot thinner, and I will be getting to that in a bit, but I mixed the fabric paint with the white paint to make a solid yellow. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to very carefully with the sponge brush go around the perimeter of the eyes. And this is setting up the glowing effect that we want, because Aku Aku has sort of glowing yellow orange eyes. So I'm just going around the perimeter of the eyes with a little bit of paint just going inwards on top of the eyes themselves. Now once that's done, we're just going to get the fabric paint on its own, and it does have a thinned out effect. It's not a solid paint, which is perfect because I'm going to go over this multiple times on the eyes, and it's just going to give that washed effect and blend in the orange and the yellow. As you can see there, you keep doing it over and over, and then you get that desired effect like it's glowing, and that was perfect. And that was purely by chance. Now here is a completed feather, and I'm going to show you guys how I did the different tones. So I just mixed a purple and a blue together. We're going to make the shadows on the purple feather. Now you see I've got that reference photo there on my phone to help along the way, so I'm just going over very carefully, trying to pick up the areas where it looks like it's shaded or it has a shadow effect going on. So it is a much more vibrant purple than the base color itself, which is perfect, which is what I want. And then we got the stem down the middle, which I'm doing. Now it's time to go in with a baby blue, which is the blue that I mixed in with the purple. And we've got that nice little sheen going on there. And that is also for the stem that goes down the middle, the highlighted stem. And it's seriously that easy, and that's what I loved about this project. It's just getting your creative on. There's the orange feather, I'm doing the exact same thing. Alright geeks, all the main components and pieces are pretty much done and dusted in terms of painting, with the exception of the teeth. As you can see, very crudely, I've drawn around with a lead pencil where the mouthpiece starts and the actual where the mouthpiece stops and the wood starts. So I'll just go in and paint that with a nice white. That'll take about 10 minutes. You don't really need to see me do that. I'm very, very happy with how the feathers have turned out. It looks different, but it's just so abstract and cool. And it was just fun getting all the shades and just little bits of detail in there. The eyes I may go over one more time with the yellow fabric wash that I was mentioning in the little time lapse. But as far as I'm concerned, everything's pretty much done with, of course, the exception of the teeth. So moving on, we got to put this bad boy on a stand. So here's what I've got so far. Now, I just slipped on the stairs. What you see here is a piece of furniture leg that you can buy from Bunnings. So that's how it comes originally. And my idea, in theory, now I've got this long screw thread here, which I will insert through there, have it poking through there. And I've got some pre-cut dowel here that I will drill a hole into. If I can get in the hole, that's what she said. And then screw it in place. Now you see I've marked out aku, and I'm gonna go over that with the cutting tool, the Dremel, or the Ryobi. I get used to saying Dremel. So I've got the cut off head there. So I'm gonna go in and make it look like it's been carved out of wood. And then I've got these fake plants here that I found at IKEA for about $4.99 each, and they look terrific. They just look like something you'd see in a rainforest. So I bought 3. I've already gone ahead and taken apart 1, so you guys get a pretty good idea of what's going to happen. I will pre-drill holes all around the top here and insert these like so it looks like he's sticking out from, you know, shrubbery, which I think is really cool. Now I will be doing a wash over this pine. Both these pieces are pine. So I'm going to be watering down some Students acrylic. I'm actually going to be watering down this base color brown and doing a wash, and then going over it with some black watered down shoe polish just to give it a bit of weathering. Then after that, I've got some PVA glue and just get some dirt, mix the two together and put some dirt on top here. So it looks like the grass is growing out of dirt. You know, it's not going to be growing out of solid pine. That just doesn't make sense. Now I will be cutting off another part of this screw thread here and inserting it in the top of this dowel, because all I want to attach the mask itself is just bore a hole in the bottom of him and literally just slot him on like so. So you can slot him off if you want to play with him, if you need him, you know, guide you through the jungle. You know, you never know. You just never know what's going to happen. So that's pretty much the method I'm going to be using in terms of making the stand. So without further ado, let's get to it. Alright geeks, just to let you know, I've drilled a hole in the center at the bottom of the mask here, and I also drilled an alternate hole, but this one doesn't go straight up. This one actually goes in on an angle. So you can see, this is how it's going to work. It's just going to slide on like so. It balances perfectly. And if you want him looking a little bit askewed like in the game, you can just put him on the angle like that. So now that the basic form of the stand has been completed, it's time to move on to weathering, and then we're going to be mixing some soil with some PVA glue to lay down on the top. Okay, now originally I said I was going to use some Students acrylic for the brown wash, but instead I found, and I did a test on some of the offcuts of this doweling, the brown shoe polish works a lot better. So what I did was I just poured some into a cup, just squeezed it out of the container, and this is just a sponge brush, and you're just gonna go over like so, and it's just gonna absorb instantly straight into that pine, which is completely fine. Now try and be as quick as you can and as even as you can when applying the shoe polish onto the pine. You just see it soaking right into the pores of the surface, which is perfect, which is what I want essentially. Now on the top here, now it's usually a little bit harder on the top here because the surface is much more rougher, but it seems to be soaking in pretty well. And then I'm just gonna grab some paper towel, just start to wipe away the excess like so. And also it helps with the drying time because you don't have as much shoe polish on the pine wanting to dry. Now we're gonna do the same for the doweling. Pretty good idea of what to expect so far. Okay, after giving this a hit with a hairdryer, it's time to move on to the black wash. Now, I'm gonna be using the Create Effects black wash from Testers. Now I've just put a little bit in the lid itself. I'm just gonna get a cheap disposable brush very, very crudely, just dab it around. This is just spare MDF that I'm using as a base, and you're just gonna dab that all over the surface. Make sure to cover everywhere. Try and cover everywhere, guys, and as quick as you can, because this stuff wants to dry very quickly. Then what you're gonna do is grab that paper towel once again, and we're gonna give it a damn good wipe this time, because you still want that brown showing through, but you still want it looking old, weathered, and you know, like it's been sitting out in the rainforest for quite some time. All right, geeks, overall, I'm very, very happy with how this weathering has turned out. I just went in with a very fine brush with the black ink, just in amongst all the carvings there to really highlight the name there. Now, I did also have to grind in a groove here, because I didn't even take into account the fact that when he slides on, that the goatee would get in the way, so I did have to grind that little groove in there. So now the next step is we're gonna apply some PVA glue around the base here. And what that will do is act as an adhesive, of course, and then I've just got some soil from the front yard. I wanted black soil because that seems like something that would be in the rainforest or in a jungle. And just like the Stormtrooper base, just gonna sprinkle it over like so. Now, I am using a reusable brush, and you're probably wondering why. Well, because it's just PVA glue. Once you're done with applying the PVA glue on the base here with this brush, you can just wash it off with some nice warm water, and the brush is still usable. Alright, now remove the excess dirt, and it's turned out so much more better than I thought it would. Now, even though this is eventually going to wilt away, dry up and die, this is a vine I found in the front yard, and I figured I'd just put it there for now. You know, when it does dry up and die, it'll, you know, keep the shape wrapped around the doweling there, and I think it'll look quite cool instead of just leaving the doweling looking a bit boring, and you know, it'll blend in well with the rest of the grass. And with that being said, it is time to hot glue all the bits of grass in, and then we are calling it a day on the stand. Alright geeks, now that all the components are pretty much painted, dried, ready to go, all that's left to do is glue the pieces together of the actual mask, and for that we're going to be using some regular Loctite on both surfaces, because this is a contact adhesive that is going to work the best. Once all the pieces have set on the mask, we're then going to mount it on the stand. I'm going to coat the entire piece with some clear gloss from Rust-Oleum. So thanks very much for watching, guys. Overall, I am so happy with the way he has turned out. It was everything I wanted, plus more with the final result. And I think this is a fitting tribute to mark the anniversary and also the announcement at E3 that they're going to be remastering the first 3 Crash Bandicoots. All the materials you see here, with the exception of the fake grass that was purchased at IKEA, everything here can be bought at your local hardware store. In my case, it was Bunnings Warehouse. If you're over in America, it's going to be Home Depot. Again, thank you guys for your amazing support. Be happy, be silly, and until next time, geeks, please always remember, cosplayers do it best.